At least I have something to help my gaming channel. Got my phone number on me. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. I trust you guys to keep an eye on these videos. The reboot will be happening with the Dark Universe, don't worry. Cinematic Universe. Dark Cinematic Universe. With all of these in one. Even the last few Star Trek videos I made. Let's check these out.
What are you up to? Lay in bed?
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did you get holes in your mattress? How did you do that?
I don't know.
Because now we got to buy you a new mattress. That's your Christmas present. You realize that?
Mm-hmm.
A new mattress is going to be your Christmas present. How are you going to like that?
I'm not sure.
Huh?
I'm not sure.
This room does not look too bad.
I should work on it.
It's looking pretty good. Yeah, you should work on it a little bit. You need some things for this room, though, to help you out. You need another new shelf or two for your movies.
That's true.
Another 2 or 3 small little ones so you can use your big one for other stuff.
Okay.
You need to do something with this in here, man.
Okay.
Because you're awful spoiled and you got a lot of stuff that a lot of kids would love to have.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't seem to appreciate or take care of any of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I don't think you do, but...
That was a while back ago.
Yeah, I know.
I hate promos.
The Walking Dead Season 9 premiere remixed a ton of memorable comic storylines into one of the most epic season openers to date. We're going to break down the best comparisons from this episode to the comics. We're just going to openly acknowledge that we're doing 901 after we did 902, but look, if Fear the Walking Dead can walk around and just kind of mess around with the timeline, fuck it, let's do it. I'm Woody Sondorf, and this is Panel to Screen. The season picks up nearly a year and a half after the conclusion of all-out war, and a lot has changed. The communities are bigger, Sanctuary has a new leader, and Rick has gone full Old Man Logan on us. Oh, good reference. The comic also skips ahead, but it's 3 years, not a year and a half. Speaking of time jumps, Maggie finally had her baby during the break. Congrats! In both the comic and show, Maggie names her and Glenn's baby Herschel, after her father, or German astronomer William Herschel. Who's to know? The only major difference is that comic Herschel is a year and a half older than his show counterpart. But comic Herschel struggles with animal sounds. On to some more new characters. In the premiere, we're introduced to Hilltop members Ken and Marco, fun names, who join our heroes on a supply mission to a museum. Outside of his parents, Tammy and Earl, we don't get to know Ken too well because, well, he dies trying to save a fucking horse, as if Ken has never seen the show. The Hilltop holds a funeral for him. Okay, and Gregory uses the occasion to convince Ken's dad to try and kill Maggie in retaliation. You get the idea. It's very Godfather. In the comics, Ken and Marco also join Hilltop during the time jump, but their characters are pretty different. Ken survives a lot longer, and he's not Tammy and Earl's son. And Ken does eventually die, as we all do, dark, but it's at the hand of the Whisperers, not a walker. Marco is mostly the same, for better or worse. Speaking of, Tammy and Earl are also some pretty big comic characters. Personality-wise, the show version of Tammy is spot on. I mean, Brett Butler really nails it. Well done, dude. Her family is another story. In the show, Tammy is married to Earl, who is actually a combination of comic characters Morton, Tammy's husband in the comics, and Earl, the town blacksmith. The Earl we get in the show is basically Morton with a new name and a blacksmithing hobby. In the comics, Tammy and Morton have a son named Brandon and are notorious for calling on Maggie to bring #Justice for Brandon after Carl whooped their son's ass after he and a friend attacked Sophia. Don't fuck with Carl. What's Carl doing in the show? What? Oh, shit. Maggie eventually relents and throws Carl in jail for nearly killing their boy. This parallels their disagreement with Maggie in the episode. On to Rick and Maggie! In the show, Rick visits Hilltop where he and Maggie argue over their so-called obligations to the Saviors. Although there's tension in the comics, this conversation was a lot tamer than the episode. All that stuff with the Saviors and the bridge is unique to the show. As mentioned earlier, Greg uses Ken's death to trick Earl into breaking his sobriety and make an attempt at Maggie's life. Fuck you, Gregory. Unfortunately for Gregory, his plan backfires, mostly because he hired a drunk with no weapons to assassinate Maggie fucking Rhee. I mean, dude, he didn't even have a knife. I mean, what's your fucking plan? Maggie storms into Gregory's trailer and tells him,
"You can't even murder someone, right?"
Damn! Old Greg tries to finish the job, but is again thwarted by Maggie fucking Rhee. Oh, it's dunzo o'clock for you, Gregory. That climactic scene from the show combined two major comic stories into one to make this badass moment come to life. First, Gregory does go to Morton and try to convince him to kill Maggie, but he chickens out. So Gregory takes matters into his own hands and slips Maggie poison, but he gets the dosage wrong and Maggie survives, telling him, "You can't even poison someone right." Which was my last Twitter update. The second comic moment the show borrows happens much later in issue 150 when Morton and his bud Vincent attack Rick in a similar cloak and dagger fashion. They did this because Tammy was killed by the Whisperers and Morton hated how slow Rick was taking to retaliate. If you don't know what the Whisperers are, you go find out. Morton tries to kill Rick and it fails because, well, you know, Rick bites his throat out and kills him and then Vince runs away because you just saw your buddy get his throat ripped out. You don't hang around for that shit. In the show, Gregory's assassination attempts earned him a spot on the brutal new hit game show, Hangman. He begs for his life and Maggie totally listens to him and has a moment of compassion. Just kidding! Maggie then tells her people she doesn't want to do this, but they ought to know there will be punishment for their crimes. And that crime is don't fuck with Maggie. Gregory also got hung in the comics, but it was much later than in the show. After sitting in jail forever, Gregory eventually gets publicly hung, and Maggie makes a similar speech to her people, encouraging them to work with her, not against her. Also, there's coffee and donuts in the main building. Other than those comic homages, there's a lot that didn't happen in the comics. Rashon and Karzekiel are not couples, sad. The DC Museum mission, the bridge, and Rick's visit to the sanctuary never happened. And mostly anything involving show-exclusive characters like Daryl, Jerry, Enid, Ann, Alden, and Cindy were also unique to the show. And that wraps up Panel to Screen for the Season 9 premiere. Like and subscribe to Skybound for more Panel to Screens. I'm Woody Tondorf. See you next time, friends.
Look around, the whole world's coming together now. Can you feel it? 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 Can you feel it?
Panel to Screen is back to catch you up on Season 9, Episode 2 of The Walking Dead. Even though the majority of the episode story was unique to the show, we're going over the moments that were inspired from the comics, along with a few Easter eggs mixed in. I'm Woody Tondorf, and this is Panel to Screen. The episode opens and closes with Rick visiting Negan in his jail cell. Rick brags about how amazing things are in Alexandria without him, but Negan asks, "Who is this new world for? Carl?" Oh, Negan, you son of a bitch, that wasn't even a whole season ago. Negan isn't bothered by Rick's bragging and tells him he's just getting the world ready for him.
You're not saving the world, Rick. You're just getting it ready for me.
Prison hasn't changed Negan a bit. Now, this scene actually comes straight out of the comics. In issue 129, Rick also pays a visit to Negan, who tells Rick to pick up his shit for him. Rick sort of brags that they're thriving, and like the show, Negan tells Rick he's actually getting the world ready for him. So the scene is mostly similar in both mediums, except Rick is a lot more of a dick about things in the show.
Don't you ever get tired of acting like you're still in charge? Do you?
Up next is less of a direct comic comparison and more of an homage. In this episode, our heroes get attacked by a rogue walker horde, which led to Aaron losing an arm in a log accident. Although this doesn't happen to anyone in the comics, Aaron's post-log appearance does look familiar. The combination of his long beard and lack of arm makes him look just like Comic Rick. Way back in issue 28 of the comics, the governor chops off Rick's hand in a fun torture scene. Rick eventually gets a prosthetic and grows his beard, so if Aaron gets a prosthetic, then he's really gonna look like him. Or Jamie Lannister. I'm just saying, if they introduce a long-lost sibling of Aaron, this is gonna get super weird and uncomfortable. Show Aaron looks suspiciously more like Comic Rick than Rick does. And this was no coincidence. Walking Dead showrunner Angela Kang told us it wasn't fully
No, I'll just stop that.
intentional, but it's a fun parallel. Plus, she said it lets them represent various people who watch the show while also telling.
Okay. So, how you guys doing? I'll ask Uncle Bill for $30 on Christmas because, well, because I'm getting a fucking mattress. Because I'm only getting a fucking new mattress on, you know. But I'm just getting a fucking mattress on Christmas. Only that. A new one. A new fucking mattress on Christmas. Are you fucking kidding me? Fuck you.
A new story. You gotta hand it to them. They're doing a great job. It's a hand joke. Final comic comparison. That mysterious Toledo MASH style sign we saw at the camp at the beginning of the episode, you know, the one that points to Alexandria, Oceanside, and Toledo? Alright, we looked it up. The only Toledos are in Ohio and Spain, and we doubt they're going to Europe. Now, this could be nothing, or it could be a massive hint at a giant new community. Recently in the comics, our heroes made their way to a huge survival town called the Commonwealth, which is in Ohio. It boasts a population of 50,000, has its own army, and yes, even a governor. She's cool, though. All of history in The Walking Dead teaches us that we can absolutely trust people who are in charge of other people who aren't Rick. The governor's name is Pamela Milton, and there are a shit ton of fan theories that speculate Georgie from Season 8 is actually Pamela Milton herself. We already know that Maggie and the Hilltops still trade with Georgie, so it would check out that they would add her community to their signage. And if Georgie does live in Toledo, then it's a very, very likely possibility this could mean that she is the governor or a relative of Pamela Milton. That, or they wanted to check out the hip aquarium at the Toledo Zoo. You know, hippos are killing machines. Nobody talks about this, that like they kill so many people in Africa. And so someone was like, hey, let's get a bunch of them in one place. This is why people get eaten in Jurassic Park. But for now, that wraps up our comic comparisons. As we said, most of the events from this episode did not happen in the source material. Locations like the camp in the woods and the bridge didn't appear in the comics, and neither did the storylines around them. The struggle between Rick's group and the Saviors, the log scene, Carol and Ezekiel's light engagement, the infighting between community leaders, as well as Tammy's visits to see her husband in jail only appeared on screen. Additionally, Daryl, Tara, Erot, Alden, and Justin are all unique to the show, and Carol died in the comics a long time ago. That wraps up this week's edition. Like the video, subscribe to Skybound, and let us know in the comments what your favorite comparison was. Rick's last episode on The Walking Dead was full of nods and Easter eggs from the comics, from his wild hallucinations to Maggie's confrontation. And more. We're here to break down all the major comic comparisons from Season 9, Episode 5. I'm Woody Tondorf, and this is Panel to Screen. After biding her time for a year and a half, Maggie was finally ready to seek revenge on Negan. In the show, she travels from Hilltop to Alexandria while organizing distractions to make sure Rick didn't stop her. I don't know about you guys, but the way 905 kicks off, I'd say Rick is distracted. She finally arrives at Alexandria and is immediately confronted by Michonne, who will not let her in. But Maggie reminds her that she would have done the same thing if Negan killed Rick. And Michonne thinks to herself, girl, if Negan killed Rick, we would have wrapped this up by like the end of Season 7. But instead, she's like, yeah, fine, take the keys. In the cell, Negan has a death wish, but a great beard. So he taunts Maggie about killing Glenn and eventually begs her to kill him before breaking down. It's very pathetic to watch.
Kill me.
Get it together, dude. It's only been a year and a half. You would not have lasted like half a season on Prison Break. Michael Schofield would be like, today's the day we're getting out of here. And Negan would be like, I can't. My wife is a bat. Seeing how much of a mess he is, Maggie realizes Negan's life is worse than death, so she spares him. In the comics, this moment happens much later, like way past the Whisperers, past the next war, all the way into what would probably be season 11. And instead of going through Michonne into his cell at Alexandria, Maggie confronts Negan while he's secluded in the wilderness. He was exiled from Alexandria after the Whisperer War. It's a whole thing. Anyway, in issue 174, Maggie hunts him down and nearly blows his head off until she realizes he's worse off being haunted by the past than being alive. So, Maggie spares him, makes out with her hilltop guard Dante, and they leave. So in the comics, she never had to create distractions, have a tense conversation with Michonne, or go to Alexandria. Nor do we get a weird moment at the beginning of 174 where Negan is a gardener talking sexy to sunflowers. Next up is more of an aesthetic reference, but it was so iconic we just have to mention it. In the show, a dying Rick hallucinates talking to Shane, Herschel, and finally Sasha while standing in a metaphorical pile of bodies of his family and friends. Fun! This is a clear homage to the Chromium variant cover for The Walking Dead issue 100, which shows Rick standing amongst all the people he had lost in the apocalypse so far. The show also included people still alive, but the visual is still a great nod to the source material. Finally, Magna. The episode ends with a massive 6-year time jump that introduced us to major comic characters Magna, Yumiko, Luke, Connie, and Kelly. Their group gets saved from walkers by none other than Judith Grimes. Holy hell, how strong is she to hold that gun? Is that a small katana? Is that Laurie's shirt? Is that Carl's hat? Is this like the costume department did some like fan fiction? What is this? Now, although Judith died in the comics way back at the prison, the Magna stuff is pretty close to the source material. In fact, Magna's group is the first thing we see following the post-All-Out War time jump. Similar to the show, Magna and her group get surrounded by walkers and are saved by someone from Alexandria, but in the comics, it's Jesus, Rosita, and Eugene, not Judith. Some other notes. The comics only did a 3-year time jump while the show did a 1.5-year one and a 6-year time skip. Also, Kelly's a man in the comics and Connie is deaf in the show. Change is constant, guys. Just roll with it. We'll dive a lot deeper into Magna's group and the whole Walking Dead teen squad throughout the season, but for now, know that they will play a huge role in the show throughout the season and beyond. But outside of that, Rick's injury, hallucinations, the bridge explosion, and Jadis' helicopter offering were all unique to the show. In fact, Rick Grimes is still kicking ass all around in the comics, so if you miss him, pick up a copy. And that wraps up all the comic comparisons from Rick's last episode of The Walking Dead. So long, Andrew Lincoln. That's all we'll see of him. He's gone forever. What? Movies? Do we have to do this for the movies, too? I got stuff to do, man! Anyways, we got a ton more amazing comic moments coming up this season, especially with the Whisperers. Holy heck, guys. So like and subscribe to Skybound for panel to screen, react videos, those were really funny, and more. I'm Winnie Tondorf. I'll see you next time.
Have a good day, everybody. Goodbye.